Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, coming to you from the Las Vegas Metro Chamber, Bernhard. He's the Executive Director of the International Gaming Institute, for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
This interview was recorded prior to the announcement of the merger between Eldorado Resorts and Caesars Entertainment.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, coming to you from the Las Vegas Metro Chamber. We're delighted to welcome for the first time to the program, and I'm sorry it's taken us so long.
No worries.
Bernhard. He's the Executive Director of the International Gaming Institute, an institute I first came across when your predecessor Bill Eatington was running it.
That's right. My mentor and a guy who arrived on the UNR campus and announced that he was going to study gambling in 1969. And that was a pretty ridiculous thing for an economist to announce in 1969, because gambling's superfluous. It's silly. It's not worthy of academic study. And boy, his department was wrong, and he built this whole field of study. And yeah, now look at us. We've grown quite a bit since then.
And with worldwide knowledge.
Yeah, we typically at the Institute hit all 6 gambling continents a year, right? All but Antarctica. And we're awaiting Antarctica's legalization. And when that happens, we'll be there. But what a neat story, right? That smart folks from Nevada are sort of answering this nerdy bat signal where we head off to different continents around the world and help them navigate a world that Nevada has profound expertise in, of course, as we export these products in the same way that Detroit made cars and sent them out to the world. We make these big shiny buildings, and now all 6 continents have them, and have them in a way that's very recognizable to Nevadans, because we're the company and state that's exporting these to the world.
All right, so let's start our journey in Japan.
Yes.
Because I know that Japanese officials from the parliament have been coming to visit. A.G. Bernhard has been on the show several times talking about members of the Diet that came over to speak with him.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Japanese market and the incredible competition for those 3 licenses?
Yeah, so Japan, I will actually be in Japan on Monday and back to teach my class on Thursday. And a lot of us here in Nevada have been doing this. And that's what's notable about the Japanese. They're students. In the best sense, right? They really want to get this right. If you drop what amounts to probably a $10 billion building into Osaka or Tokyo or Yokohama, you better get it right. And so as a result, we've really seen a tremendous thirst for knowledge. They're over at the International Gaming Institute on Maryland Parkway. It seems like every couple of months, and we're headed over there quite a bit as well. We've issued a couple of reports looking at the things that they're concerned about, and they're the kinds of things that I think most jurisdictions are concerned about. They're worried about problem gambling. They're worried about how do you regulate out organized crime, because Japan has a very famous organized crime group in the Yakuza. They want to make sure that this doesn't look like Las Vegas looked like a few generations ago. And so again, some some of the questions that are, I think, quite understandable. And the good news is we have answers, and that's what we hope we're providing.
To put this in perspective, City Center in Las Vegas cost $9 billion.
Right.
And so when you're talking about one property at $10 billion, you're talking about a huge resort.
Yeah, think about this from the perspective of humanity at large. The 14th century most expensive building in the world, cathedral. 15th century cathedral, 16th century cathedral, 17th century cathedral. All the way up through the 20th century, when for the first time in human history, the most expensive building in the world was a casino, right? City Center, when it was built, was the most expensive building humankind had ever constructed. And now that continues with the Japanese processes. So it's really quite a remarkable sociological or anthropological moment for humankind as we've moved from our most expensive buildings in the world being dedicated to religion to our most expensive buildings in the world being dedicated to consumption.
And what's interesting to me too was a few years ago there was a discussion about rebuilding 6 city blocks in San Francisco. 6 blocks on Market Street, one of the most expensive areas. The cost was, and I'm saying only, $1 billion for 6 city blocks.
Yeah, the New World Trade Center building was announced, again, the tallest skyscraper in America and arguably our most important architectural project in a generation, was announced at this massive cost of $1 billion. And once more, City Center, just down the road from us here, cost roughly 9-10 times that. So we're really seeing a sense of scope that's quite remarkable on a global scale, and it's not often that we think of it that way, those of us that drive by these buildings all the time. But once more, they're being exported all over the planet. The most expensive building in the world at one point was in Singapore as a company from Las Vegas Sands, built Marina Bay Sands, and then proceeded to pay it off very quickly because it's been so successful. So once more, we almost are like a Detroit exporting automobiles, or Pittsburgh and steel. I tell my students about how in Minneapolis they're so proud of 3M. It's a great Minneapolis St. Paul company that then invented Scotch tape and sent it out to a happy group of consumers around the world. We kind of are like that in sort of in an odd way, in that we've invented something, the massive integrated resort casino where you have all these different things under one roof, and countries all over the planet now are importing it to customers that are buying what we're selling.
Well, and what's interesting too is as gaming has grown and changed as it must. We can buy whiskey anywhere now. We can gamble pretty much anywhere. 48 states in the United States. That so much of the money is now going to all these other things. It used to be 60% plus was the standard for a casino in terms of gaming revenue. Now in Las Vegas, it's around 30% if you're lucky.
That's true.
And so they have to make money from all these other things. And it's fascinating to watch this.
Yeah, and one of the things we point out in our classes on gaming management is clearly more revenues are coming from non-gaming than gaming. But revenues are not profits, right? The casino is still a crucial part of this. Having said that, the hotel is now a massively, massively profitable entity in these buildings. Now that they're achieving the sorts of room rates that we used to only see in places like San Francisco or Chicago. And while we're still a relative bargain on the hotel room, boy, you fill 4,000 hotel rooms at those prices, that's a massive profit center. So yeah, as we do the accounting, we have to keep in mind that revenues are not profits and that the profit centers still are what allow us to do the rest of this. And in other jurisdictions around the world, it's much more dominant. Macau, for example, is roughly 95% gaming revenue, 5% non-gaming. They'd like to Las Vegas-ize in Macau. In fact, the Beijing government has encouraged them.
Right, that was the whole concept, was to promote a family-friendly atmosphere.
That's right.
As a big tourism center.
And how amazing is it on a global political scale that Beijing is encouraging Macau, which is sort of the one country, two systems rule, but Macau's sort of part of China, but they're encouraging it to Las Vegas-ize. It's kind of a remarkable thing when you're seeing Beijing saying you should be more like Las Vegas, right? Who would have thought a generation ago that would be the case? All
right, let's take a break. We'll come back. So much more to talk about after this.
Tamarack Junction is South Reno's hotspot with over 450 of the latest slots and video games. Sully Sports Bar, the Dining Car Restaurant, William Hill Sportsbook, and the Tamarack Steakhouse and Lounge. We're just north of the Summit Mall in South Virginia.
Yeah.
Because of UMC, there's a wide open road ahead of me.
Because of UMC, she can grow up with her twin sister. Because of UMC, I'm here to help you.
UMC, the highest level of care in Nevada.
Hi, I'm Eric Robnett, owner of Home Energy Experts. Has this ever happened to you?
Honey, did you remember to turn down the thermostat?
Forgetting to set the temperature? Not fun. We can help. Our new smart thermostat keeps the temperature set for your comfort all by itself.
I'm feeling hot now.
To increase your comfort, go to homeenergyexperts.com for details. That's homeenergyexperts.com.
The signs and symptoms of cataracts can start out small with subtle changes in your vision. So don't wait. Be proactive and take your vision into your own hands. If you're experiencing the onset of cataracts or just have questions, contact your eye care professional or call Eye Care Associates of Nevada today. Dr. Hiss has years of experience specializing in the surgical correction of eye disorders and has completed over 84,000 vision correcting procedures. At Eye Care Associates of Nevada, we'll change the way you look at the world.
The Tamarack Junction Steakhouse is known for signature steaks, handcrafted cocktails, and world-class wines. Join us Thursdays and Friday nights from 4:30 to 6:30 in the Steakhouse Lounge for live music, gourmet plates, and well-priced wines, just north of the Summit Mall on South Virginia.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Bernhard. He's the Executive Director of the International Gaming Institute. So a couple of weeks ago, Grant Govertson of Union Gaming put out a piece where he relayed concerns that with the amount of growth in Macau, that it could be overdeveloped and that the return on investment for the companies that were investing huge amounts of money there might not play out. What were your thoughts on that?
So yeah, Grant's a really smart guy,
yes,
first of all,
he is.
and a must-read on all things Macau. And it's really interesting in light of, it was roughly 10 years ago that Sheldon Adelson said it won't be my lifetime, it will perhaps be my grandchildren's lifetime before China's sort of demand for gambling is finally satiated, right? When they finally see that demand fulfilled. And clearly what we're seeing, obviously, as Grant points out, is a very expensive sort of development cost to compete at that level. And you're seeing not just sort of properties that like the Wynn property, which we expect to see be sort of expensive at that level, but MGM Cotai right across the street. All the new Cotai area developments can stand up against certainly anything on Las Vegas Boulevard. And these, of course, as we were mentioning earlier, are so expensive to develop that you've got to make a lot of money to make that money back. And so Grant's right, the return on that investment's getting tougher and tougher.
Howard Stutz was here, as I mentioned to you off air, and he was saying that he doesn't believe that the Las Vegas companies are going to be as affected as other companies who are trying to get into that marketplace. What's your thoughts on that?
Getting into
Macau.
Getting into Macau, yeah. So the Las Vegas companies have really done an effective job, once more, when you take a step back and think globally. How many American companies have struggled with China, either on a manufacturing side or on the consumer side, right, or navigating the complex world there? The Las Vegas companies that are over there, and Wynn, MGM, and Las Vegas Sands, have each developed, I think, a government relations strategy, if you will. It's been really effective, and I think maybe underappreciated as it pertains to, once more, sort of the quintessential business challenge in the global business economy in 2019, which is how do you navigate the beast that is China on so many different levels. So yeah, I'm with Howard. I think the Las Vegas companies have done an outstanding job. I think that the license renewal process that's coming up in these next few years looks good for those companies. And I think they've achieved what Macau has wanted by and large, right? So once more, you do hear that they would like more non-gaming amenities. You do hear that they would like more of a Las Vegasization. But having said that, those developments are spectacular. And the Chinese consumer is traveling, is buying, if you will, tourism, which once more is something that Las Vegas has been selling for some time.
Yeah, and I think it was probably about 10 years ago that the traveling public that could afford to travel and go to places like Macau or overseas was around 300 million people. Yeah. So it's the equivalent of the United States.
That's right, that's right.
That can spend money. So let me ask you this though. Do you think, because of the way that China operates and wants to see Chinese companies involved much more, that you're going to have to see, Win already has a partner that's a Chinese company, but seeing the other companies being forced to take on Chinese companies in the same way that Japan is looking to force anybody who wants to have an integrated resort in Japan to have a Japanese component as well.
That's exactly right. And clearly you can understand where these jurisdictions are coming from. China, Japan, they want their local businesses to benefit from what are the most expensive buildings in the world that will transform their tourism economy. So they don't just want Las Vegas companies deriving all the revenues and all of that coming back to sort of the global capital that is Las Vegas. And so they're smart to want that. And I think each of these companies have gotten a lot more sophisticated at evaluating the caliber of partners. Partnerships are something you need to be very careful about in gaming, because if you partner with the wrong person, suddenly the Nevada Gaming Control Board has questions, because you can't have anybody be a part of any of these operations with any sort of shady past whatsoever. Those are the rules. You can lose your Nevada license if you run afoul of those rules overseas. And so this is the delicate dance that executives of these companies have to deal with in a way that, once more, let's think about the Strip in the 90s. Nobody had to, the leaders of these companies didn't have to contemplate this sort of global complexity. So in many ways, these companies are much like other global behemoths that are trying to navigate these complex waters overseas.
You bring up the Gaming Control Board and their oversight. One of the things that has not occurred yet is any discussion of Steve Wynn and his problems, travails. He still holds a Nevada license because they would not allow him to surrender it. Do you think that there is potential for Nevada to take action against Steve Wynn personally? And do you think that this is going to come up either before or during the renewal talks for the concessions in Macau?
Yeah, so clearly any regulators abroad are going to have questions about any regulatory troubles anywhere, right? So not just Nevada, of course, but Massachusetts have both gone through this very extensive review of the company. And as that company, for example, seeks a Japan license, those will be questions, of course. More broadly, of course, I think this is a company that has achieved almost sort of a Louis Vuitton brand, independent of the individual whose name adorned the top of the building. And that's the kind of thing that's very attractive to the Japanese consumer, who for a long time has sort of appreciated the more high-end product. So in some ways, Wynn has some advantages. In other ways, of course, they face some questions.
All right, let's take another break and we'll come back with more after this timeout.
Dimitri Prine here for Design Outdoor. Are you a homeowner who's interested in remodeling or building a home? At Design Outdoor, we can show you how adding natural or manufactured masonry stone can add beauty and value to your home. And we refer only the best contractors. Our store and backyard are located at 11600 South Virginia, just north of DeMonte Ranch Parkway. Visit designoutdoor.com or call us at 851-9499.
Hey guys, are you watching the game at a friend's or the bar again because you can't watch at home with your wife? Or worse, because she kicked you out and kept your couch, your flat screen, and your kids? What's the one thing a man needs when he loses a good woman? A good lawyer. And when he loses a bad woman, he needs a great lawyer. What makes a good woman a bad woman? You tell me. You're the one that can't watch the game in your own home. I'm men's rights attorney Marilyn York, and I represent men in divorce, custody, and family law matters.
Hi, I'm Dave Newman. Remember me? I used to be the house detective, and now I'm a realtor, full-time at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates. And a lot of people ask me, how's the market? You know what? It's fantastic. If you're even kicking around the idea of buying or selling, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Call me at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates and just ask for the guy who used to be the house detective, Dave Newman.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take an Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And Back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Bernhard. He's the executive director of the International Gaming Institute. So going back to the first time I went to Macau, which was the year 2000, before all of the development, went to Stanley Ho's Lisboa Palace and was shocked by the obvious rampant criminal element that was in that casino. In fact, I hurried my wife out of that building as fast as possible. The gangsters were actually running rooms that you could walk into that were separate from the rest of the casino. And I wondered, when the Nevada companies opened up there and there was no hint of any criminal element, what had happened. It was interesting, years later, in fact about a year ago, I was speaking with Jan Jones, and she said that was one of the concerns of Caesars. That could they go there with their Nevada license and end up losing their Nevada licenses and others across the country because of, and that was one of the reasons Caesars didn't go in whole hog. So your thoughts on that vis-a-vis what the Japanese are looking at with the Yakuza?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question, and sort of the ultimate question at this stage with Japan. And yeah, Caesars made an understandable decision, right? Now it's easy to look back and say, boy, that would have transformed that company had they gotten into Macau. But that was not a decision that was viewed as overly conservative or crazy by their board. That was, you know, they were very concerned, as you and I were, if you visit Macau back in those days, about what was a very obvious criminal element. I would observe more generally, what I tell my students is Las Vegas has been really good for Macau, and Macau's been really good for Las Vegas, right? I think there was this fear that perhaps as the product goes overseas, that Las Vegas would be lessened. These companies are stronger in Las Vegas. There are big jobs in Las Vegas that primarily focus on Macau. Nowadays, it didn't exist a few years back. And from the Macau side, once more, you walk through the Nevada properties there, and it doesn't feel at all like the Macau that you and I reference. Once more, I think Japan's gotten pretty smart. They've spent a lot of time in Macau. They've spent a lot of time in Singapore. Once more, two jurisdictions, I would say Singapore in particular, that from the outset really focused on proper regulation and approaches to gaming while simultaneously allowing for development to happen, and simultaneously paying attention to this organized crime element. So these aren't unfamiliar questions to those of us that are familiar with Nevada history. After all, we've got a lot of experience here. It's not necessarily that we're the smartest folks in the world. We've just done a whole lot of this and made a whole lot of mistakes and corrected, and now we've got a good system that we're exporting to other governments.
I remember, probably it's 10 years ago now, talking to Rossi Wallencotter about the next big market for Nevada. And at the time, he said the country of India. It's got over 1.2 billion people, and a larger and larger percentage of which can travel and spend money. But we really haven't seen much energy from Nevada towards India.
So I think India in particular is interesting in that Singapore has figured it out. Singapore is clearly a Chinese jurisdiction, but it also is an Indian jurisdiction. And throughout Las Vegas's history, there was a fear that when Atlantic City opened, that would shut down Las Vegas or severely damage it. And what happened was a whole new swath of the populace on the East Coast was exposed to this casino resort product, and they wanted to see the big version in Las Vegas. And the same thing has happened with Chinese high roller gamblers, for example, who have been first exposed in Macau and then decided they want to come here. And we've seen the baccarat numbers reflect that. I still think Rossi's right. I think we will see this change with India. And more broadly, how fascinating is it that in the last few years, for the first time, 1 in 10 dollars, pesos, rubles, 10% of the global economy now is spent on tourism for the first time in human history. And as you point out, that's because we're seeing the rise of middle classes around the world that are able to travel. And Las Vegas is very much an intellectual capital, in addition to being a destination, that drives that 10% of the world's economy. So in much the same way that Detroit drove the industrial era, Pittsburgh drove the industrial era, many cities worldwide drove that industrial era, I think that Las Vegas is helping drive a post-industrial era in which tourism is an increasingly important economic force.
Last year, Jan Jones was traveling in addition to places like Japan, to Brazil.
Yeah.
Because of the craziness with their political system at this point in
Yeah.
time, do you see the potential for casinos opening up there anytime
I
soon?
think it's a much tougher go. Once more, I'm a sociologist, so I'm constantly taking the big step back. Jan was spending time not just in Rio, but also in Athens, of course,
Correct.
also in Tokyo. New York City is going through a massive debate now as to whether they'll allow casinos within the city limits. Can you imagine, 5 years from now, it's certainly possible that Athens, the capital of antiquity, right? Tokyo, capital of business Asia, right? Rio, which is arguably a capital of South America, and New York City, right? That these global cities will have a casino, again, a building that was very recognizable to the founders of this city in the heart of those global capitals. What a remarkable Las Vegas moment. Again, our ancestors in Las Vegas must be just spinning in their graves thinking about the possibilities.
My thought, though, is what took them so long? I mean, first of all, when you look at the tax revenues, and especially in jurisdictions outside of Nevada, I mean, I think that it's a dual-edged sword with our low tax rate in Nevada that is incredibly low, that yes, it's incredibly low, but there are lots of companies still wanting to build in Las Vegas because it's incredibly low versus going to Pennsylvania, going to Macau or wherever.
Yeah, I think the answer, you can answer in one sociological term, stigma, right? Gambling is still today, right, not thought of in the same way that, say, a furniture superstore is when it moves into your backyard. The NIMBY, the not in my backyard phenomenon, is still alive and well with gambling. And it's fascinating because it's diverse in different places, right? The Japanese NIMBY is different from the Athens NIMBY, which is different from the Rio NIMBY. But we still have that. We still have the, if we invite gambling in, what else will we be inviting in? And while there have been sort of great strides on a lot of those issues, I still think that that's something that local jurisdictions worry about. And again, that's what's keeping us from seeing sort of more rapid or earlier expansion.
Well, thank you very much for doing this. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and you're a great interview, so please come back again.
Thank you, anytime.
All right, and we'll be right back.
A bird's eye captures its surroundings at different heights. At Brian Culpa Photography, we can make your imagination soar over buildings, parks, cityscapes, and beyond. Brian's images tell the story and get the job done. If you need a new perspective to tell your story, contact Brian today. Brian Culpa Photography. Experience the bird's eye view at brianculpaphotography.com.
Hey, Dad? What are you learning? This place is great. Huh? You gotta try this.
Wow, this stuff is great. People are gonna love it.
Yes. Yes, they will.
St. Ives Florist, for every holiday and every special occasion. For romance. Custom home design. We have the largest selection of fresh flowers in northern Nevada. And we also offer a large selection of unique gift items. Come see me, Lori Ann, at St. Ives Florist, 700 South Wells Avenue, or call me at 333-9190.
Take a look at Pro Group Management and see how your workers' comp requirements can be met head-on. By taking a proactive approach, Pro Group can assure that your company is meeting or exceeding state and federal standards. As you move forward in your industry, Pro Group moves with you, simplifying regulatory tasks, clearing the way so you can get the job done and look to your future success. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Our thanks to the Las Vegas Metro Chamber for hosting us, and always you can catch all of our shows at NevadaNewsmakers.com and on YouTube. We'll see you on the next broadcast.